record button here. All right, so joining us virtually, I'm going to jump over here to, I gotta share my screen. Sorry guys, this is that disclaimer I gave you about technology. All right, so I turn it over to Casey Collins, who is our chair of the Businesswomen's Roundtable, and she's got a special message and our next introduction.
Hi everybody, I'm Casey Collins, and I am one of the women who coordinates our Louisa Chamber of Commerce and Businesswomen's Roundtable, and I'm so excited for our event today. I know that we have quite a few of you in person at our venue, and I'm sorry that I can't be there with you, but for the company I work with, we're required to stay virtual at all times. So I'm coming to you virtually just to welcome you and thank you for joining us for this event. I also have the pleasure of introducing everybody to Anne Harvey. Anne Harvey is joining us today, coming in from Texas. And of course, she's not coming in person, but she'll be joining us during this Zoom session. And I wanted to tell you why I'm so excited to have Anne present to you guys today. So Anne is the Director of Member Services and Communications with Touchstone Energy Cooperatives. And so for those of you who know me, you know that I work for Electric Cooperative, and Electric Cooperative is a member-owned organization, and it's part of a huge and amazing network of people all over the country. And so I've had the pleasure of hearing Anne speak over the years that I've worked with Electric, and I'm excited for you guys to get to know her today. She is full of energy, she is full of a lot of exciting information and great tips that I hope that you'll be able to take back and implement at home or at work as you work on reimagining your life as we all work through this pandemic and all of the changes that we're all facing together. So I look forward to hearing what you all have done to reimagine your careers, reimagine your home spaces, and reimagine your life. And I also look forward to hearing about all the things that you've been able to accomplish since we set our 2020 goals at the beginning of the year. So I know that myself, I have a lot of time that I wasn't expecting to be at home, and I am so excited that I've accomplished quite a few of those goals that I set on my vision board, and I can't wait to hear what yours are also. So I would like to ask you to give a warm welcome to Anne Harvey, and I'll let her tell a little bit more about herself, but like I said, I know you're going to love her. So thanks so much, and enjoy the presentation.
All right, go ahead, Anne, take it away.
Awesome, and hopefully y'all can see my screen. Yes, we're good, Tracy? Awesome. See, look at this. We got this technology down. So, well, welcome to Texas. This is kind of like, you know, virtual traveling. So welcome to my home. I'm Anne Harvey. As Casey said, we've known each other a really long time. I actually worked at an electric cooperative in Texas many years ago, got to know Casey, and so now I get to work with electric co-ops all over the country. And I have a very unusual job because even though I live in Texas, that's where home is, before the pandemic, every single week I was on the road visiting 1 or 2 different states, talking to my different members. And actually, I feel really close to you guys in Virginia because my office is actually in Boston. So once a month, I spend a week in Virginia. So hopefully sometime I'll be able to pop into a chamber meeting and meet you guys all in person once the world gets back to normal. But one of the things is in my career is I have seen so many changes. I have been, as it says on the slide, for a quarter of a century, and that just is crazy in the electric industry. And what's really unique and what I love about talking to different women about leadership and various things related to that is that this is a very male-dominated industry. Electric power, your engineers, your finance, your CEOs, almost everyone is male. And so I had to learn a lot of things on the fly. And then also when I took this role, I was going from where I was working in an office to having to do things remote and having to try to engage and connect with 700 different organizations across the country during normal times and during crisis times. So what I kind of pulled together for y'all is a presentation, and I call it Empowered By. And part of that reason is because I'm in the power industry, so that's what I'm comfortable with. That's what it's all about for me, is about power. And hopefully at the end of this, you'll be empowered too. So when Casey had asked me to speak, I went over what are all the different possibilities. And I was going like, well, I could talk about this and I could talk about that. And oh, I don't want to forget to share this and that. And so these are kind of the things that I thought of in probably the first 10 minutes that, gosh, I'd love to share this. But of course, I needed to scale it down. So for those of you, I know there's people who like different communications. Some people like an agenda. They like to know what they're getting into. Okay, for that group, I've highlighted for you, this is our agenda, and we're just gonna jump in, get going, and I've left some time for Q&A, so that way we can have some discussion. I love to talk to people, and if I didn't even finish all these slides because we were having a great conversation, to me that's success. So, one of the things Casey had asked that I talk about is generations and sort of generational communication. What are the expectations? So depending what you're Googling, there are up to like 10 generations now, because there's some big generations and then they thought, well, that's almost too big. We're seeing differences. Let's nail that down a little bit. But I'm going to really focus on some of the dominant ones. And right now, there's 4 dominant ones in our workplaces. And it's really interesting because all of them have defining different characteristics, different preferences, and how I like to talk to them about, and I promise you, like Tracy and I didn't plan this, but it worked out perfect because I like to talk about pop culture and icons and references related to that. So what we did for an icebreaker perfectly set me up for the next section. The first generation we're going to talk about is the greatest generation. And again, these dates are kind of fluid depending where you look at them. But basically, this is the group that was dealing with war, dealing with economic depression. This is the group that we would probably consider have the traditional values, a work ethic. They're very humble. This is honestly one of the generations that I actually feel closest with, because this is the generation that built the electric cooperative industry, what I work with, what Casey worked with every day, where we're member owned. Because people wouldn't bring power out to our areas, we said, you know what, we're gonna do it ourselves, darn it. And everybody who participates is gonna be an owner and have a say. And that really, to me, sort of sums up the greatest generation. And they didn't do it for themselves, they just did it because it was the right thing to do. Now, icons, look at this cartoon. So I picked Mickey because Mickey was born in 1928. This is that group that has always had cartoons, but think about the wonderment that they had the first time they ever saw Mickey in Steamboat Willie. This was new technology, you know, kind of like the Google glasses and things are today. The other thing why I love to hit Mickey and feature him is because, you know, I have 7 grandchildren. And they love Mickey still. And so it's one of those things that there's something about Mickey, the personality, all his friends, the lessons that they teach, those different values. He's evolved over the years, but there still is such a love for Mickey. And he's just as popular today, if not even more. I was walking through Walmart the other day and noticed that they have a whole Mickey collection now as well. So Mickey's again coming back in popularity even more. And some of that may be because we're kind of in that time of crisis and uncertainty, and we always go back and lean toward and get comforted by the things that are from the greatest generation. So next is the silent generation. This is the group that, of course, they had, whoever had mentioned Gloria Swanson, that is where we're talking about, that is that silent generation. Again, they're called that because they work silently to achieve these really, really big goals. They are appreciating the simple things in life. that this is when the war was there. This is sort of that Hollywood era, that glamour that you had there. It was where you also had a lot of strong women. And the reason I picked this picture, and that's Hedy Lamarr. And if you don't know Hedy Lamarr's story, it's incredibly interesting because, yes, she was a starlet, but before that time, she was actually in Germany dealing with all the different things pre-war there. But what people don't realize is she was also a scientist. And she's the one who actually invented the precursor to Wi-Fi. So I owe her and what she did the ability to be able to be talking to you guys today. And you don't know that. And it's because it's that silent generation. So a group that did amazing things but weren't looking for credit. We're just looking to give back. Then we go into that baby boomers, and so much has been written, discussed about baby boomers. We all know the baby boomers. That's the Keeping Up with the Joneses, the largest group that had been there thus far. This is the group. So we were talking a little bit. You know, I pick Elvis because to me, all the skinny Elvis, the fat Elvis, everything in between, that kind of personalizes that generation. But also, somebody had mentioned Goldie Hawn, and you know, sort of that change, that you know, activism, all of those different things was part of this generation and what they were about and what was important for them. Then you have Generation X, and that's the baby bus. This is the smallest group, often feeling the most forgotten. It's the small, you know, as I said, smallest group. They, at the time, they had the highest level of education ever achieved because of being pushed from their parents. They saw things like the fall of communism, and this is the group of latchkey children, a very independent group because for the first time, they probably had, a majority had both parents working and out in the workforce. And it was really hard for me to try to figure out and pick who would be the icon, so I just put cable TV. MTV generation is another way to describe this. You know, before that, and I know if some of you are younger, you can't even imagine this, but there used to be like 3 TV channels, and they would go off at midnight. They play the national anthem, and then your screen would go blank. I know that sounds absolutely crazy to think about those things, but that's what happened. But this group is the first group that had cable TV and getting into a little bit more of personalization, and you had many options instead of one option, and news started changing. You know, there was more of a connectedness, and it really was a precursor to this millennial generation. That's the one that right now people are most interested in. They're also called Gen Y, Gen Next. This is a group that went through, you know, has known the terrorist attacks, global warming, the internet. I mean, this is the group that maybe they didn't always have the internet, but lately, and probably from high school on, they've always had these in their hands. It's a mobile group. You better be doing things mobily for this group. They went through, you know, we had an economic downturn that they went through. Things like Enron, where they're a little distrustful of these big companies and what's going on there. And right now, they have replaced the boomers as the largest living group. So they're definitely one to take notice of, especially as we run our businesses. And for a lot of times too, when I talk about generations, you know, it's kind of like I'm talking about aliens or this other, you know, crazy group. Remember, millennials are not aliens. These are the people like we helped raise, we helped create. They're the people that we're friends with. Some of us are millennials. And so for me, you know, making sure that they're feeling included and not that, oh, there's something different set to the side. And Taylor Swift is probably the biggest example because for most of her life, she's been in front of the media, in front of the public, and she does so much more than just singing as what she started out with, or morphing that even into movies, where she does a lot of philanthropy, has her own companies, and is using her voice for a bigger group. So she really kind of symbolizes that generation. Then we've got Gen Z. And for those of you who don't know, that person who I selected, that's Kylie Jenner. She's part of that Kardashian family. But I looked it up. She is worth $1 billion. That's not an M, that is a B, $1 billion at that age group. This is the group that if you understand social media like she does, because she's always had it. You know, if you want your voice to be heard, you're able to do it. And she figured out how to put some, you know, bank behind that, which, you know, kudos to her. I wish I would have been able to do things like that. And so that's where a lot of times, in the workforce or even as an employer, I'm seeing that a lot of people who are in management positions, they're kind of going like, okay, let's bring in these Gen Zs because they have different ideas, different thoughts. They, you know, and some of the things is they understand Instagram. They have smart everything. They're the ones that you go to when you're going like, okay, I don't know how to do the technical things. Go get a Gen Z. That, you know, I wish I could travel with a Gen Z all the time to help me with my presentations. So the other thing is I wanted to look at what's coming up, because we always have to be prepared for what's going to be the new thing and starting to learn this different group. And that they're called Gen Alphas. I wasn't really, thank you again for inviting me to do this, because it required me to learn a little bit more. I did not know there were Gen Alphas. This is the group that's had tech their entire life. This group knows how to multitask. Oh my goodness, they have no problems having YouTube streaming on TV, working on their smartphone, having a conversation with you. And while they're holding a phone in their right hand, they're drawing a picture with crayons in their left hand. It is unbelievable. So this is a group that understands how to multitask. Also, they have a huge influence on spending with their parents. It is because with YouTube and commercials, it's more than ever before. So they ask for things by name. They just, you know, and a perfect example, I was talking to my granddaughter, she, you know, about going back to school. And I'm like, oh, I'll buy you a pair of tennis shoes. What color do you want? I'm thinking purple, red, blue. She's like, unicorns and rainbows. And I'm like, okay, since when did that become a color? But also, this is the group that totally wants everything personalized and customized to them and to their every whims. Because you know what? I could go out to the internet and I could find rainbows and unicorns on tennis shoes to send over to her and get it to her house over the internet, because I won't see her and she's already tracking the package, even though she's only 6. So it's just, this is that generation, and it's like, boy, how are we going to have to change things like real estate, or, you know, even basic things like marketing and visual interest to really excite this group. And right there, as I put, Prince George is one of the examples. He already has an Instagram account that is more popular than many people's ever would be. And he's only, what, 6? So, you know, that's where things are going. It's they don't play dolls or doctor anymore. Kids play Instagram star and how to do YouTubes. It's so fascinating. And so keep that on your radar. But now that you know all these generational sort of categories, remember, these are broad strokes, okay? There still is a lot of things that are about personalities. Also, you can use it to predict their actions, sort of like a horoscope, okay? So it's, and again, one thing that's very interesting is the Goldie Hawn generation, big into like, hey baby, what's your sign? You know, that was the big thing. Guess what? Millennials, they love horoscopes too. They love seeing their signs, you know, and learning about that. But as you know, when you read a horoscope, if you believe it, you're like, yeah, that's what's going to happen that day. And if you don't, you're like, nah, this horoscope thing isn't true. So kind of the same thing with generational things and printing them in a broad stroke. Instead, what I really prefer to do is to get to know people and rely on their personal preferences, especially when we're working with a team. So I wanted to kind of move over to the pandemic and what that's done with our teams and how we've kind of had to adapt, and some of the things that I'm looking at as I'm working with about 35,000 different employees across the nation, in addition to my own team. One of the things, some of them are more comfortable with work from home than others. And that's okay. And our job as leaders is to kind of say, what can I do to support you? How can I help you? That's one reason why on my second bullet of allowing any type of communication channel. I just want people to be communicating with me. The worst thing would be is if someone went silent, because I'm going to be concerned, especially if it's one of my, employees or team members who lives alone, during this time, plus they're working from home, so they're not having the interaction, plus we're having to stay inside. I want to make sure they're doing okay. So if somebody wants to communicate with me and just go like on a text message, whereas in the past everybody was working in an office, that might not have been the most appropriate depending on your culture. Now I'm like, you want to talk to me on a text message? Great. You want to send me an email on my personal email? That's fine. Let's just keep talking. Let's just be keeping engaged with those different things. So that's one change. And that also ties down to the last point about emoticons are now professional. So when emoticons first came out and people were talking about email etiquette, it was like, never ever use a smiley face. Now, if we're not doing things by video conferencing or chat, there's not a great way other than really listening to people's voices and tonality to know what they're feeling. So I'm like, throw those emoticons in. If I'm going, Tracy and I were talking, I'd be like, want her to know that I'm happy. I'll put a little smiley face or, thank you so much, emoticon, because that's going to show more. The other thing is that's a lot more acceptable because of social media. Everybody that's the language. That's how people talk. So it's absolutely now fine to use emoticons, which maybe a few months ago, not so much. So things change with the pandemic. Another thing is Slack over email. So right now there's 2 of us who in our core office of 16 who are not millennials. And so, that's where that's kind of my area of expertise is how do you work with millennials and what do they do different? So there is Slack. It's similar to Microsoft Teams, but it's basically instant messaging each other. I promise you, I will send my team an email saying, hey, I'm needing some data. Do you think that you can get that to me in the next 15 minutes? Here's what I need. Send it to an email. I can hit send, and I promise you, I almost hear the eye roll or the, as soon as that email gets there. But you know what? I say exactly the same thing on Slack, and they're like, cool, no problem. Or they give me a little thumbs up emoji, on that. I don't know what it is, but sometimes it's your channel that can really make a difference in connection. So just kind of figure out what might work best with you. Another thing is giving them control. This is a group that loves to feel in control, even though they're younger, maybe they don't have as much experience. They know it all. And so rather than fighting that, I just kind of go, okay, let me give you control on those types of things. So how I kind of do that is I say, hey, would a touch base really help you at all? And if they go, yeah, I go, okay, great. What date and time is good for you? Technically, I'm their boss. Technically, I could have said, hey, we're going to do a check-in at XYZ time and sent the invite and not even talk to them about it. But by including them in those types of things, just that little, hey, do you have time? Is this going to work with you? Would you like to even do this? It totally is a game changer. And that's something that you can also take for your teams or also your clients. The other thing is too, is so often I find that these things, don't tell my family, but these things really work at home too. Where it's like, oh man, maybe if I ask my teenager, hey, would you like to do this? What time's going to work great for you? Maybe if I give them a little bit more control, especially during these times that are so stressful, maybe that might help the conversation. The other thing is so often when people send an email or requesting your teams to do work remotely or from home, people don't give a deadline. Please always put a deadline because that lets me know, do I need to drop everything else I had planned today or do I maybe have a week? And once you give someone a deadline, you leave it there unless there's something crazy that happens. There is no need to micromanage. And that's how I've really found that our teams have been responding remotely. Now I'm going to move over to clients or your customers. kind of the same things go. Some are more comfortable with this pandemic than others. And understand that, you know, right now, the best thing we can do is just be understanding and listening, and maybe do a little bit more, go a little bit above and beyond. Again, any type of communication channel. I was talking to someone at an electric cooperative the other day, and they go, you will not believe how many people are now instant messaging or using Facebook Messenger to talk to the electric co-op. That was not a thing before, you know, the pandemic, and now that's how they're wanting to do things. So you know what, okay, let's adapt, let's understand this is difficult for them. We had to, you know, shut down in person. If that's how they're feeling comfortable and having that connection with us, all right, let's go with it. Stress levels are high right now, just keep that in mind. Especially, I am predicting September is going to go through the roof. Reason why is because of that back to school thing, trying to get kids to college, what's going on with sports. You know, I'm still working from home, or maybe I'm back at the office, but my kids are still in school. It's going to go through the roof. So I would say, you know, from a professional standpoint, now might not be the time to launch something new because people may be too busy to notice it, or any of your tips, any of your tricks, anything that you do or you have that might help people during this time, especially with the children. If you had something like educational, like you guys were just saying about the history, that's great. Those are the things to be promoting, because that's going to be helping the parents during this especially stressful time. Again, same thing, giving your clients control. I saw this awesome ad the other day, and it was like, hey, call us for a private showroom viewing. I was like, that is so cool. If my favorite boutique, the owner was like, hey, are you interested in scheduling a private showing? Oh my gosh, I would be there, and I guarantee you I'd be buying as well, because I know they took the time to do that, and I'd still feel safe. So there's, again, ways you can give people control with those things. Also, be authentic. This is the time where we're seeing there are going to be glitches with technology. You know, there was a time when I probably would have been doing a presentation, I would have been incredibly formal, and, you know, I would have been very buttoned up. And now it's like, you know what, people want to connect. You have to try to put that human into that technology part. And so, you know what, just be yourself. You know, that's what really goes the furthest right now. And your client's availability is altered, so notice that and leverage it. So people may be home more or more willing to be looking at their phone during lunch times. You might be noticing that. Or look at your emails. What times are starting to get some of the best click-throughs or different traffic? Because their lives, their standard, you know, 9 to 5, that has totally altered. So kind of keep those things in mind and sort of go, how can I adapt and help through that? So the next section that I always think is so important, and the team and any co-op people that work with me, you got to practice what you preach, and you've got to be true to yourself. You know, it's one of the things where I was teasing Tracy before. She's like, yeah, this is what's so cool is that we have somebody from Texas coming into Virginia. And I'm like, I can make my draw a whole lot, you know, more if you think it's going to help, you know. And she'd ask me, she's like, well, where are you from? Are you from Texas originally? I'm like, no, I was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, downtown, and got this crazy idea, ended up in a town in 2000 in rural Texas before there was such a thing as an internet. Crazy culture shock. But it really showed me I had to be authentic to myself. For 5 years, I fought y'all because I was like, that's not me. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, you know, that's kind of handy. So now I say y'all. But, you know, you see, I am not wearing like a 10-gallon hat. I don't have the cowboy getup. That is not me. Always be true to yourself. That's what's going to be the most thing. And especially this millennial generation, they want authenticity. Personal and professional have merged. When I started in business, it was I have my professional life, and I am this person who is like, boom, 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 we're going to be professional. And then I had what I did the rest of my time that my staff probably never even knew about. They didn't know my hobbies. Now, I'm getting, you know, people who live in Utah who I work with. I'm getting all these Facebook requests. And co-op's a little different because co-ops are one big happy family. So I'm like, come on, the more you know about me, all you're going to see is pics of the grandkids, and, you know, maybe I'm out fishing or something like that. You know, but they have merged. So always keep that in mind and go, how can I adapt to that as well? What do I need to do with my profession? Do I need to make sure I'm friendly? And the other thing is to remember is if people are looking to work with you professionally, they'll go out and they'll go check your Facebook pages. That is nothing. I literally, our team, we were looking to hire some interns, and one of the things they did, I didn't even think about this, but our team was like, oh, we might want this person, we might not want this person. And I'm like, how do you already know that from looking at their resume? They go, oh, we went out to Facebook and different places and Instagram, and we were checking what they did to see if they would fit in. I was like, what a great idea. I would have never thought about those things. And so that's where professional and personal have merged. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes it's a little daunting if you're not used to that, but just embrace it. And if you're doing the first thing, always being true to yourself, there's no issues at all. Looking outside of your industry. That's one thing. Electric industries, they're conservative by nature. It's male dominated. To do, the organization I work for now, Touchstone Energy, we're based on innovation. I don't find innovation, marketing, communication, new ideas that much from my industry. So I go out and I go look at your industries and I go, oh my gosh, that's really a cool idea. Now, how can I adapt that to what I'm doing now? And so those are some things that I would really say is always look outside your industry. And it's like if somebody has an interesting idea, for example, real estate. Real estate used to be, I would have to go in for the closing. No ifs, ands, or buts. I had to take off work, go in, sign the paperwork. All of a sudden a pandemic happens and we can now do that digitally, and that's perfectly okay. Wow. First of all, that is great. I am very excited about that. But second of all, if you're a business that typically has required people to come in, maybe we can look at, okay, what have they done to be able to do that securely? And you can sort of adopt that. In cooperative world, we are always sharing ideas, and we don't call it stealing ideas. We call it admire and acquire. So I encourage you, and especially in a chamber, that's what I love about being in chamber organizations, is that you can admire and acquire, and that's one of the best things. Remember, training, it's more than professional development. And what I mean by that is each of you have amazing things that you can share with others and that you can share with your clients. So for example, you could say, hey, I'm going to do, if you owned a boutique, for example, you guys, you'd have to probably fold a lot of clothes, right? You could go, hey, I'm going to do some training on how do you properly fold clothes, and just do a little added content there. And that's something too, like as a parent, I'd be like, hey, here, let's watch YouTube and let's do this great, have you organize your clothes. And I know that sounds crazy, but I tested it out the other day with my granddaughter and showed her a new folding technique. And her mom's like, what did you do? She just went through the entire house and just organized all of our drawers. And then also decided what was going to go to Goodwill. So, I mean, it works. So again, just don't think of training as professional development. Think of it in times like now as a value add, because people aren't able to come into your stores or to your storefronts. The other thing is learn to smize. So, all of us have guilty pleasures, little things on TV especially. Mine is America's Next Top Model. I don't know what it is. That's just my jam. And Tyra Banks has this thing called Smize, which is where you smile with your eyes. Also, I used to have to sit in large meetings, kind of like big city council meetings that were live streamed and that. And I was always the person in the front row because I was, taking notes because I was going to have to work with the journalists. And so I had to learn that no matter what crazy things came out of people's mouths, to just kind of smile like this. And I don't know if you noticed it or not, but as all of y'all were filling in for the first 30 minutes, I kept that smile on my face. That is one of the most powerful things you can do in this technology and with this world of Zoom. So you can even do it with a mask. So one of the things is you see this woman and it's like, okay, great, she's got a mask on, wonderful. But look at this one. You can just totally tell that couple is smiling. Now, who do you want to interact with? The woman on the purple or that other group. And it all is just telling a story with their eyes. So that's one thing. I know it sounds crazy, but kind of, especially if you deal with people and you're having to wear a mask, good tip is learn to smize. And then again, same thing with your Zoom, is just figure out how do you hold a half smile. Now, you're never going to be able to, the woman who's cheesing out all over, you could not hold that for a long time. But you can hold a half smile like that for a while. So you can practice that. Y'all all, maybe after, we're done talking, take a little time on the break, practice, holding your smile. The other thing is too, is how you come across. It's almost like every one of us now has our own little TV station, and we're all TV anchors to how you have to do your makeup, the colors that you wear, your background. I should have a little thing right down here that says lighting by Tracy, because we did a practice yesterday and she's like, hey, you're coming through a little dark, you need to go get a lamp. I went out and got a lamp, and so that's one of the things where it's just like having your own television studio. And again, body language is critical, because we don't think everybody's watching, but they are. And the woman who's kind of got her head like that, people could take that the wrong way, like you're going like, what are you talking about? So always be really cognizant of those different things. Another quick thing, if you are not familiar with Pomodoro, oh my goodness, it means tomato in Italian. And yes, those are delicious. Yes, I love it, because you can just tell they're from, homegrown from a market, say summer. But I'm going to be talking about the Pomodoro technique. And what that is, and it came literally from this timer, where it's a tomato that was set on a 25-minute timer. So if you're not familiar with the Pomodoro technique, it has really given me my sanity in this work from home. And also, as I said, some of these skills, this is an awesome thing if you have kids at home who are doing education. This might really help as well. I wish that my kids were still young and I could teach them these things. So Pomodoro technique, what that is you make a list at the beginning of the morning on what are your different projects or tasks. And don't make them too big. Don't make it like, okay, I'm going to do, 5 sales plans. It's like, okay, I'm going to do 1 sales plan, or break it into smaller tasks. We've all heard don't eat the whole elephant. You can't eat it in one bite. So figure out your bites and kind of write down, what do I need to do today? Then you estimate, okay, for doing this, how many 25-minute segments or Pomodoros is that going to take? So I go, all right, well, that one might take 2. This one will take 1. This one's going to take 3. What that lets you do, and you kind of draw a little circle by it, so like 2 circles. What that does is you go, these 5 tasks, if I'm doing how many Pomodoros it estimated, I need about 20 more hours in the day. So it really helps you get things down to where it's manageable. Then you set your timer. It can be the true Pomodoro egg timer. I just usually tell Alexa, or I'll put it on my smartphone while I'm working, for 25 minutes. You focus on just that task. You don't go, oh, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. Oh, wow, that email popped in or that text message popped in. No, for 25 minutes, it is basically like doing a sprint, okay? You are just going to focus on that. Then you give yourself a 5-minute break. That's when you do run to the bathroom. That's when you go grab your cup of coffee. That's when you check your email. You are a better woman than me if you can check your social media and get off of it in 5 minutes. But if you can do it, more power to you. And then you cross off, okay, I did that Pomodoro, and then you jump back into it after 25 minutes. After 4 Pomodoros, that's when you take your 20-minute time out. I know it sounds crazy, and I know but it works. And when I do my days like that, those are the most productive days that I have. And it's also really great if you're trying to do things or trying to help homeschool, because your kids will know, okay, on that timer, oh, mom's going to be free in 10 minutes to help me. And then you can take, your Pomodoro then, or the 20-minute break, and help them all at once. So again, something that can really be helpful. And it helps you eliminate multitasking. You have a sense of urgency. You really do, because you're like, okay, how much can I get done before my next break? The other thing is I'm one of those where it's like, I'm a writer by trade. I want every single word to be perfect. And, you sometimes don't make progress when you're when you're trying to be that perfect. So it makes me force down, okay, at least just get a rough draft that truly is rough. And then my next Pomodoro, I can go back and do the edits. And it also decreases your stress levels because you're doing things in little tasks, and at the end of the day, you feel like you got things finished. So with that, Tracy, do we want to pause and take a couple comments? Does anyone have comments?
Thank you so much. Wasn't that great, everybody? And give some good nuggets. Anne, why don't you unshare your screen so we can see your face again?
Sorry.
That's okay.
There you go.
So we'll do that. So we have just about a minute or so for any questions or anything. Does anybody have any questions or things that they want to comment about? If there's anybody on Zoom, you can just unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment that you'd like to ask Anne. All right, great. Well, again, I'd like to say thank you, Anne, so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. That Pomodoro, I've heard of that before, but I haven't started. I'm going to start doing that because that's like golden nugget for me. So thank you again. So we're going to transition now and do our last segment, which is a panelist discussion. And so we have two panelists that are joining us virtually, and then we have two in the audience. So Heather and Tiffany, I'm going to actually have you guys come up and kind of just, if you don't mind hanging at the table. If you want to sit down, you can bring a chair. But that way, I will give you guys the microphone so you can just kind of hand back and forth. So this is something new that we're doing for the Businesswomen's Roundtable, and we actually have 4 panelists that are joining us. You met them during the introductory period. We, of course, have Tiffany Hazelwood, and we have Heather Meckler-Fickless, and then we also have on Zoom Dana Rossett and Carlene she's going to say her name.
Kowalczyk.
Thank you. Kowalczyk. So they are joining us, and what we're going to do is we've just got some panel questions that we're going to ask. All of these ladies come from, if you've heard, during the introductions, you heard kind of their background, their jobs, different aspects of what they're doing. So we have a variety of circumstances that they're facing throughout this pandemic. And so what we want to do is just give them each an opportunity. I'm going to toss up a question. Dana, Carlene, you just unmute yourself if you would like to answer that question. Same thing between you and Tiffany. If you want to take a stab at answering the question, we're not going to go through all of them and have every single all 4 of them comment, because some of them are relevant to others. For example, Heather's got children at home dealing with homeschooling and so forth. So we're just going to get right into it and just asking some general questions just to kind of start off. This is, as we're going through the pandemic here and all the changes and adjustments we've had to face, what have you found to be the most effective tool you have used or action to help you adapt to all of the changes that have occurred since this past March? So who would like to start?
Outside of anything, don't be shy on social media. That's been one of the best ways for me to stay connected with my clients, because I used to shy away from, being that person that's posting too many times about, what you're doing, whether it's work or personal. But just from posting as much as I have, I had a call yesterday from a guy who said, hey, look, on Facebook and I want to buy a house. So it's been great because so many people are, not able to be in person.
Awesome. Social media, good. Dana, Carlene, Heather, maybe you want to answer that question?
I'm just thinking, because I'm a mom, I just have 3 kids, but during that time when they were going from school, was responsible for finishing these packets. It was important for me to kind of take time for myself. I love art. My husband gave me time to be like in my studio, just creating and doing stuff. I think I would have lost my mind, and I didn't have that time to create and do stuff.
Taking time for yourself. Yeah, who doesn't recognize how important that is? Dana, Carlene, either one of you want to comment?
You can go ahead, Carl.
The only thing that I'll add, we did use a lot of digital platforms to continue to reach people. The thing that I found personally that helped me, and this isn't the same for every career, but I belong to a couple professional organizations. So for me, that's the American Association of State and Local History and the Virginia Association of Museums. And I found value in them because I didn't have the time to do all the research, but that was their job. So they did all the research and they held webinars on how do you reopen a museum? How do you work with a board during COVID? You know, what are the financial resources that are out there now? And I was constantly watching those webinars, and in 40 minutes, I learned what would have taken me a couple hours to research on my own.
Great point. Dana, how about you?
As an independent contractor, networking with other independent contractors in my role on social media has been key to accessing the relief bills and things like that, and understanding how to do it. I don't know how to do that stuff. I am blindly plowing through this pandemic and don't know anything about what I'm doing. And then personally, I really try so hard to just keep a finger on the pulse of my personal stress levels, because if I get stressed out, then this whole house gets stressed out and everyone is crazy, and then I want to move, but COVID.
You didn't move. Yeah, I'll mirror a little what Carlene said as well. From my perspective, the associations and groups, you know, I know particularly the chamber, that is what, I mean, I don't think there's a better time for association and memberships and organizations to be of service for businesses, because like she was mentioning, you know, tapping into that and getting up to speed quickly. I don't know about y'all, but my email increased by a bajillion, like in a hot second, right? So having somebody else kind of combing through that and being able to tap into that information, that was huge. Okay, so let's see here. These questions that came from Casey, by the way. Before the pandemic, there were a lot of people already working from home or working remotely. Several of you on our panelists were doing that already. What are some tips you have for those of us who may still be trying to figure out how do we work remote and develop a work routine, you know, at home where we typically have those separated? So
I'll dive in if we want to go back in order. But yeah, so that's been a thing for me forever. I must embrace the chaos of it. That's what comes with real estate. But and I've always had a home office, but the one that I currently have, I can say it wasn't really busy that much. I would just find myself on my laptop, like at the coffee table, getting distracted from looking at the TV. And so I made my office like a more functional, enjoyable space. I went out and bought a big commercial size desk, and I took one of my flat screen TVs and I made it so I could put my laptop and make it a big, nice, comfortable monitor and, you know, comfortable chair. So I would say some spaces maybe be more defined so that you can be more productive when you're in them, and then maybe some spaces be less defined. Like as here, I always like to move furniture around just for fun. So I was like, I'm going to dining room and kitchen. I never eat in my kitchen. I took the kitchen table and chairs, put it on the porch so that'll be me to spend more time outside. And then I put a couch in my kitchen. So I have like this coffee bar lounge, and at night it becomes a wine lounge, and I thought people look out the window. So, yeah, just have some fun. You're into furniture. So, you know, utilize like this formal spaces that, you know, if you have two dining spaces, make one of them into the home office or the school. Right.
With my home office, my studio, my business kind of lived off of shows. So the shows have been canceled. There's not a lot of vendor shows. So I've been a hairdresser for 20+ years, and that business has like always been like a little side hustle that I kind of didn't really do a whole lot, just like with friends. And then during the pandemic, kind of that my schedule kind of adapted to kind of fit more doing hair than it did making my creations for sales. And also it was like a lot of work. When I had my kids home, I could kind of just work around their schedules and meeting me with like in between Zooms and things like that. And I could have clients over. The thing with the protocol of being a hairdresser, it's kind of the same as in a doctor's office. You have to disinfect, you gotta do all those things, even if you have a home run business doing hair. So I really wasn't concerned about the virus per se during that time.
Dana, Carlene? Either of you have any input on that? All right, Dana, I'm gonna actually directly ask you this question because you pretty much have been working at home nonstop. You mentioned working as an international English teacher, so you've been in this space of working virtually for a long time and balancing also homeschooling your children already. So what advice, based on your experience of kind of doing this way of life for an extended period of time, what advice do you give to all of us, maybe about the space or juggling those kids? What does your daily routine kind of look like so you have a good work-life balance to what you do?
Well, you did remind me of what I did have to add on the last question was that you do have to have an absolute endpoint on work in order to move on to the rest of your responsibilities, because for me, it's just too dividing to have work priorities, kid priorities, home priorities, all juggling all the time. And fortunately, my job is scheduled and timed. Every day I have however many appointments, usually about 10 half-hour lessons. They have maybe 30 minutes between them, maybe 5 minutes between them. But also involved in that, I need to write a quick note to the mom about how the lesson went. It needs to be culturally appropriate. So that Anne's talk was actually really useful to me. Although I'm talking to international parents, it is really important to keep in mind the generations and stuff like that. So if I am having a great day, I get all of my feedback written as I'm teaching. And when I finish my last class at 9 o'clock, I'm ready to start with the kids. But if I'm going to have a better day, I take 15 minutes and get outside, or have a phone call with a friend, do something to change gears, because otherwise I'm going to feel like all I do is work. And I think it's really, really easy for us as women to feel like all we do is work, even if it's not even true, because we're wasting time in the margins and not setting aside time for us to be wasting. So I think that is a survival technique. If you're going to live and work and parent and clean and plan and dream and live and sleep all in the same place, it is really important to recognize when you're on break and acknowledge it. As far as homeschooling, I schedule everyone's school for the week. I write it down in pencil only. Every week on Sundays. And fortunately, we tried virtual school for my youngest child, wanted to go to the middle school this year. She's a 6th grader. And my 2 oldest had transitioned really seamlessly into the high school in 9th grade for each of them. I have a senior and a junior at the high school now. And so we thought, oh, no big deal. We will just, yes, of course, we are going to just slip right into this virtual academy that Louisa County schools have put together. As a homeschool mom, I need to tell all moms everywhere, virtual schooling at home public school is nothing like homeschooling. With homeschooling, you are accountable to you and your kid and the laws of the state, but the laws of Virginia are really easy to comply with. And then we tried the virtual academy for a big 4 days. And I will confess to you that as of yesterday at 9 a.m., I am a 6th grade dropout because it just wasn't going to work. I mean, and for us, I'm so fortunate that I already know what to do. But there's a lot of resources out there. I'm not saying abandon Louisa County Public Schools. They're doing the very best job that they could possibly do in this terrible situation. But my 11-year-old cannot learn in a class with 85 kids, and her online math class was that big. So there are a lot of local homeschool groups wherever you are. That's where you there's a lot of big homeschool social media pages that you can resource, but the local group is where you can find out, like, my kid struggles with this. What should I do in this situation? And that's where moms can talk to moms and really share their knowledge.
Great. Thank you so much, Dana.
I can go on and on.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Carlene, I want to ask you a direct question because of the panelists, you are the closest panelist to kind of managing a staff. You manage volunteers, which is a lot, you know, a lot like managing staff, perhaps, even sometimes harder because they're not getting paid. And then also, you also have a tourist attraction. So you had some unique challenges and found some tools that I think other folks in their business endeavors might be interested. Do you want to share kind of some of your top tools or resources that you use to transitioning so quickly? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. I do feel like we were able to transition fairly well. We are a fairly small team. We had a good dynamic to start. So I think kind of that goes to some of Anne's comments about kind of building that to begin with, and sort of launching from that point was helpful. So it's myself, 2 part-time staff members. We have a board of, I think it's 12 now, and then anywhere between 30 to 50 volunteers that do different things for the organization. So maintaining clear communication. The people that are more involved in our operations, we share multiple G Drive accounts. So using all the different Google Suite, we had already been doing that. So that made it really easy for us to transition into everyone's kind of working remotely. Another tool that we had started using probably about 6 months before the pandemic is Asana. And that's just a project management tool. There's a free version. You can create projects and to-do lists, and you can assign different tasks to different people and put different deadlines on it. So for example, my bookkeeper is going to be working remote throughout this entire pandemic for personal reasons. And so that Asana is very helpful for us to keep on the same page with monthly, weekly, recurring bookkeeping tasks. And then in terms of public outreach being sort of a tourist destination, we have tried to replace anything that we have canceled with a remote option. So one of our more popular things has been our home-based lesson plans. So instead of doing our free family days, which honestly, right, moms and dads are busy. They don't have a lot of time to get their kids in the car, bring them to the museum to do these fun programs that we used to offer once a month. We're actually realizing that we're reaching more people digitally, because at any point you can go on the computer, you can download it, there's some historical information. We try to use really basic stuff you have at home, and you and your family together can do this activity and learn a little bit more about history. So that's just one example, but we've used Demio, which is a webinar platform. We've used Zoom, we've uploaded videos to YouTube, we've really expanded our Instagram presence, and we've been getting a lot of traction with Instagram, just sharing things in our collections. So in some ways, we're honestly finding that we were maybe wasting time by doing everything in person before COVID, and that even after COVID, I think we will continue doing more digital because we reach more people.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So now I want to go to Tiffany and Heather and ask you a more specific direct question, because both of you, you and Tiffany working in real estate and always working with new homeowners and things like that. And Heather, I know you've got a very unique concept that you're getting ready to do for space. I want to talk about, clarifying and giving some more tips about what are some key things that people really want to do with their home or their office space to kind of stay focused, stay productive, and manage through this process. You got some?
I guess just close the door, like if you can. That's been helpful for me to get in my office and close the door, so I'm not like jumping up to go do laundry or I forgot to stay, So I think presentation earlier that was key to just like stay focused and try the Pomodoro thing. But yeah, I'm
Well, you did touch upon it already, like
Yeah.
that whole like making your
Right.
Well, I have my studio, and that kind of got transformed into like a little mini school during the time my kids were home until May 22nd. After May 22nd, I kind of kicked them out and said, okay, we're done. Now that school started back, I still have my studio, so I made that specifically just for my arts and crafts and my materials for that in a workspace. But with my hair business, I was working out in my kitchen, and I still am, but this, because it's kind of grown, and I think I might wanna maybe start doing a lot more hair. I have 1969, like vintage camper, and I was using it and hoping to turn it into a mobile store boutique for my accessories. But that doesn't really seem like it would be all that profitable. So I think I'm gonna gut it out and turn it into a little salon. But it won't be mobile exactly because it's gonna be hard for water and hook up, electricity. It's something that's gonna be outside of my studio that I have. So it's gonna be like a special, like a separate entity where I'm just gonna just do hair, all my hair stuff. I have my studio, just do my crafts, my special stuff like that. And then my kids, that's another thing. We are doing a hybrid thing where the kids, 2 of my kids go to school 3 days a week, and 1 goes regular hybrid for 2 days. And we transformed my living room into kind of their place where I repainted the walls. I made it more of a learning space rather than let's clutter up stuff in living room stuff.
That's great. That's great. You got something else?
Yeah, so I've seen some of my clients doing really creative things. There's a house that these buyers, they have 3 kids and 2 dogs, and they're moving into this smaller house, but it has like 2 sheds, a detached garage, and a backyard. And so I'm gonna finish off the shed, throw a window air conditioning unit in there, make this schoolhouse, right in the backyard. So that when they get out there, they know that's what time it is to concentrate.
Absolutely, that's great. And so we're close to our time, and before we wrap everything up, thank you all of our panelists. I want to give you guys each an opportunity, if you have any tip, what is one thing through this experience that you've had to reimagine in your life to kind of balance your work, personal? Does anybody have kind of something that jumps out that the blessing in disguise that's kind of come out of this pandemic issue that's helped you improve, whether it's personally or professionally with your work? Yes, Cynthia.
It's not so much that, but the one thing I haven't heard is discipline. I have a husband who now works from home. Well, usually I don't know this man's name. He's done so much with work, but now he's home 24/7. But we set up a back room, he's in it, and his discipline, his work, he goes in there, he stays there all day long. And then I get tongue-tied now. But it is discipline. You can do all sorts of things, but until you set your mind to it, it's not going to get done. But I can appreciate, being in the kitchen and having a television there. I'm not going to fill my gas with I do mixes. I'm not going to do it correctly, but then I'm over there watching what they're doing it, and it takes all my concentration.
Discipline, that's a good one. Yeah. All right, so as a travel agent, you can imagine that everybody canceled nearly everything for the entire year. So once I was done canceling everybody, which was an unbelievable nightmare, and I didn't sleep like 5 days, I decided I'm going to become an expert in everything. Seriously, every cruise line, every destination has an online tutorial or school. So I'm an expert in Canard, I'm an expert in Princess, the islands of Barbuda and Antigua. I mean, you just go on and on. So that's how I spent most of my time. I've got a file folder in my head, just constantly going. But I took this time to really broaden my horizons and learn everything I could learn. And there was nothing else to do because no one was looking at anything.
I'll share, along with, what you mentioned about the homeowners, my brother, had to work from home, he took his shed, he did beyond the AC unit, he's got electronic, he's like, I'm never going back to work, whether they open them or not, I'm staying here, and I was like, yeah, yeah, he really, he has a maxed out shed now, so, for the chamber, we obviously pivoted in a huge way. We're looking for new and different ways to keep people connected, because that's one of the biggest things about the chamber. I would also say, as a chamber, government affairs is really at the core of what a chamber of commerce does to help our businesses. And I can tell you that it was now more than ever, it was the most critical time to be around the Virginia Chamber, the U.S. Chamber, the Louisa Chamber. We were involved in all of these bills and knowing about funding and all of that kind of stuff. So just being able to adjust, be flexible, and balance to the needs of people and business people and what they need. I've seen a lot of businesses adjust and seen their sales increase because they're doing things differently. They learn and grow, like Carly was mentioning about the History Museum. Certainly at the chamber, we've learned new and different things to be better. So I think there's positives that balance out. And quite frankly, this is just me, but I think this pandemic has caused everyone to really step outside their comfort zone and change and adjust. And that's how you grow, is stepping out and trying new things. So I'm excited about seeing what everybody's doing in the community. It is right at 1 o'clock. I want to thank our special guest, Anne Harvey from Texas, and Cassie. I did it again. It's Casey. Always say that. I have another friend named Cassie. Casey Hollins, and also Lacey Lee, Tammy Boxley. They're the team that works with Businesswomen Roundtable together. Thank you to all of our guests that came, our panelists. Really appreciate your time and jumping on and providing your 2 cents worth. I want to give a plug to our booklet, our directory. This is our spring issue. We're actually right now working on our fall edition. So there's still an opportunity to place an ad in the directory. It's reserved for chamber members only, so you do have to be a chamber member to advertise, and also it will be included in the directory listing in the back. We're also adding an alphabetized listing. And then the fall issue is going to be about everything that we love about Louisa. The fun stuff that there is to do here, the attractions, the dining, the shopping, the recreation, the lake, our nonprofit organizations. It's going to be a really spectacular issue. We deliver it up and down 95 and 64 through Virginia Tourism Corporation, as well as throughout Louisa. So it's a great opportunity for you to get exposure. If you are not a member of the chamber, now it's never been a better time to get involved. I'd love to talk to you about it. I'd love to find out more about your business and see if we're a good fit to help you. And with that, I would like to again thank everybody. Thank Shenandoah Crossing for wonderful lunch, perfect timing, Jessica. Thank you. And last but not least, I do have 3 door prizes. So if y'all want to hang out for 2 quick seconds, we'll do a live